Trump touts proposed Bible literacy classes in state schools. All right. President Trump on Monday embraced a proposal from lawmakers in 6 states that would allow public schools to offer Bible literacy classes shortly after the subject was discussed on Fox and Friends. So here's what Trump said about it. Numerous states introducing Bible literacy classes, giving students the option of studying the Bible, starting to make a turn back. Great. The tweet came roughly a half hour after North Dakota State Rep. Aaron McWilliams appeared on Fox and Friends. McWilliams is co-sponsoring a measure in North Dakota to support Bible literacy classes. Other states that have been doing this, Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia, Virginia, and Florida. USA Today reported that the proposals would require or encourage public schools to offer elective classes on the Bible with a focus on its historical significance. Okay, problem right here. The Bible is not a history book. Critics of the measures have argued that they could violate the constitutional separation between church and state. Those critics would be right. Trump has courted the support of evangelical leaders, with many defending him despite criticism over his rhetoric towards immigrants and on the campaign trail. Okay, that's the end of the article. So here's a number of issues. First of all, I do think this violates the separation of church and state. The Bible is not a history book. Does it have some elements involved with history? Certainly. It was written during a certain period of time. Anybody reading that book, whether you believe it has, you believe it's more than a book or not, so to speak, if you do believe there was some divine intervention there, you still have to read it through the historical lens of when it was being written. That's just something that you should do. But it's still not a history book, per se. And the problem is, there are plenty of history books. There are plenty of real history books. And the fact that we live in a world where they're banning Howard Zinn, they're trying to ban, the state of Indiana not too long ago tried to ban Howard Zinn, the People's History of the United States, but we're trying to teach the Bible to high schoolers. That is backwards beyond comprehension. And there's so many things that they're not, arts programs get cut constantly all the time. They don't even really teach civics anymore. I didn't get civics when I was in high school. A lot of people don't. They don't teach, I never had a home ec class. I know there's still some instances where they do it, but they typically don't. At least in my experience, they didn't. So there's so many things that if we're going to offer more curriculum to students, which isn't a bad thing, but if we're going to do that, there's so many other things we should be doing. Just a basic like life class. The fact that like there's nowhere, they don't typically have, some high schools do. I'm not trying to overgeneralize here. I'm sure and I'm sure some of you in the comments, well, at this particular high school, I'm sure there's some high schools that do. But overall, like they talk about this all the time, how, there's no class that teach high schoolers how to balance a checkbook, how to write a check, how to, balance a budget, how to, and I know that there's no substitute for life experience, but if you're going to have more electives for young developing minds, why not have something that has some practicality in their life or will help them make decisions? What about a media literacy class? Especially in the world we live in right now. A world where our news structure is virtually non-existent because it's just controlled by a handful of corporations. A media literacy class, that should be required in high schools, in my opinion. So I just named a wide handful of things that should be way more important than a Bible literacy class. I've read the Bible cover to cover because YOLO. I've read that book. There's a lot of just genealogy in that book. There's a lot of bullshit in that book. And if you really read in between the lines, there's a lot of just don't act up. There's a lot of just, when you really read the Bible, which I have, and you really kind of look into it, a lot of it is like, just don't act up. And when you think about a time where there were rich people and there were poor people, and there weren't bombs, And there were a lot more poor people than rich people, and the rich people had to wonder, what's going to stop all these poor people from uprising? The idea that having a book that tells them that if they repent, the kingdom is theirs. That a rich person can't get to the kingdom through an eye of the needle, but the poor, they'll inherit the earth. The meek will inherit the earth. That's not a bad method of control. And I personally don't see the Bible as anything more than that. Those are my beliefs. If your beliefs are otherwise, that's fine. You have every right in the world to believe what you want to believe, as long as you don't hurt others. But either way, I think that it is a gross violation of the separation of church and state to teach the Bible in public schools. And even if it wasn't, I think there are a million more important electives that high schoolers could have. Business, finance, life skills, driver's ed, home ec, civics, economics. More foreign language instruction. We're like one of the only countries in the world where there's not in the world, but in the industrialized world where there's not near as many bilingual people. When I lived in a youth hostel and I was like the only American there, I was the only person that wasn't bilingual. And it was embarrassing. Like, I was embarrassed by it. And it's just because that wasn't emphasized in childhood. It wasn't taught in schools. I'm conversational in Italian. I wouldn't say I'm fluent, but I'm conversational. And I wish I was better at it. But it's really, you have to really make the effort to seek it out. Especially since it's Italian, not a language a lot of people speak. But I have family over there, so it's my language of choice. I one day hope to be fluent in it. One day I hope that and it might not happen until I'm retired. Literally. And I'm okay with that. I do hope there's a day where I'm older and I'm no longer, I'm just kind of doing what I want to do. Although I kind of do that now. I do what I want to do now. So I guess in a way I can't complain. But I have to do a lot of stuff. And I would like to eventually just go to the library and bunker down and travel to Italy as much as I can and get fluent in Italian. That is one of my goals before I die. Not to be morbid, but before I die someday, So anyway, there's a lot more important electives we could be having, even if this wasn't a gross violation of the separation of church and state, which it is anyway.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and